Type 1, type 2, and even late onset diabetes is not just confined to us humans anymore. It has become the new explosive hot topic amongst pet owners too. Our pets are now dying of diabetes at record rates. The question is, why? And what is the common link between all of us? Our genetics, as you will come to find out, is based on our ancestors and their exposure to the direct world around them. Can that hardwired set of genes every animal has on this planet be manipulated by what we think and believe is healthy today? What is slowly killing us all? But before we begin, let me welcome all of you resilient diabetics out there. This is the channel we turn ordinary, struggling diabetics into extraordinary, well-controlled diabetics. If you don't know who I am and you are brand new to this channel, I welcome you. My name is Sampat, and I became an insulin-dependent diabetic a little over 6 years ago due to an autoimmune attack which caused the destruction of my pancreas. So not only am I a diabetic, just like you, where we will have to walk that walk and talk that talk together, but I do also have a university bachelor's science degree in nutrition dietetics, and that does come in very handy in discussing all the intricacies of being a diabetic. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button followed by the gray notification bell, then choose turn on all notifications. That is, if you want to be notified when the next Resilient Diabetic has been published. I would greatly appreciate you smashing that like button if you've also learned something new today. As with all of my videos, this should not be considered personal medical advice. This is my interpretation of the latest research. If you want medical advice, please always consult your physician. I have always said, we are what we eat. Science is increasingly exposing more and more evidence showing how evolution of our species or the genetic framework of our metabolism was made through time by the changing of food sources. Foods available to our ancestors varied over time as the world changed around them, from warm to wet, cool to dry, and then back again. Those changes are what drove our evolution. Although our world may be evolving at light speed, many of our genes are still stuck in that hunter-gatherer dinner table. Only 330 human generations have come and gone since the development of agriculture. Before this time, all humans on this planet made their living as hunter-gatherers. So the vast majority of human genome has resulted from the environment of our hunter and gatherers and their ancestors much earlier than that. The set idea is this: our diets have changed far too quickly for our genes to keep up, and the end result has been a cluster of conditions that include, but are not limited to, diabetes, elevated blood pressure, and obesity. Think about what would happen if you put diesel into a regular car engine built for gasoline. The wrong fuel will wreak havoc on the system, whether we're filling a car or stuffing our face. There is a saying, nothing in biology and nutrition makes sense except in the light of evolution. No matter how absurd this may sound, the clues that evolutionary evidence provides for optimal human nutrition will be, in my opinion, proven correct in the end. I can also suggest there are a lot of similarities in all animals, and so we are likely to have more genes in common. Certain foods will either hurt or heal us animals based on our hardwired genes. What made me jump for joy was the connection many of you subscribers made when I did the episode called Are Eggs Good for Diabetics? A light bulb went off when you realized the health of the egg a chicken produces is directly related to what the hen ate and the environment in which it was raised. Feed the modern quote-unquote healthy way, full of corn, wheat, and grains, and it will produce a sick chicken with an anemic egg devoid of many nutrients, regardless of the addition of supplements. So what do we as humans, chickens, our pets, dogs and cats, have in common? Are we all getting sicker and unhealthier together as co-heirs on this planet because we are eating foods our bodies just simply cannot metabolize? So let's talk about chickens first, because this is where many of you made that very important connection of diet and health. And as you know, chickens are omnivores. Now, what is an omnivore? An omnivore is an animal or person that eats both plants and animals as their main food. The word omnivore comes from the Latin word omni, meaning everything and all, and vor, which means to devour. Chickens, left alone in the wild, will happily nibble on grasses, weeds, herbs, flowers, grains, seeds, berries, and they will gobble up all the bugs, insects, larvae, spiders, worms, grubs, and even small rodents and birds. And they will go out and catch snakes if they can. It's important to note that chickens will eat both live and dead meat. So you learned two very important points in the episode on eggs. If that chicken is cooped up in a small confined space and is fed grains, it will produce a different nutrient-devoid egg due to the limited foods it was subject to. You can also generally tell whether an egg comes from a healthy, outdoor chicken eating foods as it naturally would, or a strictly vegetarian-fed chicken that has never seen the light of day by the color of that egg yolk. So no matter how well-intended one is, if you feed that chicken something it was not designed for, it will get sick. Can we say the same thing for us humans and our pets too? So not only is more than 1 in 3 of us pre-diabetic here in the United States, but there has been an explosion of diagnosed diabetic dogs and cats too. So yes, our pets are suffering from the same diseases we are. The question is why? One study found a 32% increase in the incidence of diabetes in dogs and a 16% increase in cats between 2006 and 2010, and it's only gotten worse. And just like in us humans, the experts want to blame this on a sharp rise specifically on pet obesity, a reduction in the amount of exercise pets are getting, and the increased lifespans. What did that study completely exclude? The diet of the animals, and most importantly, what was in the food they were eating. Their heads are completely in the sands, just like our nutritional institutional experts. The second question we must ask, is there something sinister involved? So let's first start this conversation with dogs first. Once a dog gets this frighteningly common diagnosis of diabetes, he or she will more than likely need insulin for the rest of their life. When a dog gets diagnosed, they will generally have type 1 diabetes or type 1 insulin-dependent diabetes, whereas cats are more than likely to get type 2 diabetes. A dog's food is probably one of the most controversial topics that any dog owner will encounter. Vets strongly agree that all cats are carnivores. However, the topic on dogs, they are often divided. If you want to provide the best health for your dog, then you need to provide it with the most nutritional food or the types that it evolved to eat. So, not what you think is healthy, i.e. healthy for humans, but what that dog was hardwired to consume. Dogs are essentially carnivores, not omnivores like our friends the chicken. It is not conclusive or the gospel. However, much of the scientific principles that it is based upon are quite compelling. First, there is conclusive proof that modern domestic dogs are a direct descendant of the gray wolf. They share the same teeth, digestive system, and behaviors clearly representative of carnivores. All wolves and primitive wild dogs of Africa are carnivores. They hunt in packs and they capture small or large animal prey as their main diet. It is also true that they on occasion will eat berries, fruits, some parts of plants. However, this is nowhere near the amount of carbohydrates found in most modern packaged dog foods. It is also said that scientists do agree that dogs physiologically do not require any carbohydrates in their diets, as fats and proteins gained from the meat is sufficient to sustain normal blood sugars. While you are now aware that the modern dog is a scavenger, some breeds will eat almost anything. This is more than likely due to the conditioning from humans and the innate wish to please us humans. If they are hungry and something is put directly in front of them that smells okay, then they will eat it in our artificial world. But they are not optimized to eat anything but meat. What is controversial are the specific dietary strategies recommended for controlling glycemic response once that dog becomes diabetic. And then tell me, does this sound similar? None, and I'll repeat this again, none of the leading veterinary textbooks recommend a low or a zero carbohydrate diet to help dogs manage their diabetes. Instead, they recommend strategies that more merely slow but not reduce the amounts of glucose into the bloodstream. Their solutions? Feed the dog complex carbohydrates instead of simple ones. Feed some fiber along with the carbohydrates. Why not just tackle the problem directly and recommend carbohydrate restriction or outright elimination instead? Premium dog food with less than 5% starch is now available. Veterinarians who think about the evolution of dogs and their genetics, who treat their diabetic dogs with zero carbohydrate diets, are having remarkable results. So the crazy question is, why are they pushing an animal who is essentially a carnivore carbohydrates? You've heard me say this before. You've got to follow the money. First, the two leading veterinary nutrition textbooks in circulation today were written and paid by employees of the pet nutrition and the pet care industry. In other words, they preach what their companies are selling. The dog formulas sold by these leading pet manufacturers rely heavily on cheap, fattening, blood sugar spiking dietary carbohydrates. For instance, more than half of the calories in the leading dog food these textbooks recommend come from carbohydrates. If you think that is bad, let's talk about cats, as this is where things will get really interesting, because now you will see more links to us humans. Cats are prone to diabetes because they develop insulin resistance, meaning their bodies don't efficiently use insulin. So in essence, they become type 2 diabetics. With dogs, if you remember, they become type 1 diabetics because they have an increased chance of pancreatitis or inflammation of the pancreas, which then leads to diabetes because the body just doesn't produce any insulin. The domestic cat's wild ancestors are obligate carnivores. The key word here is obligate, whose prey contains only minimal amounts of carbohydrates. What does obligate mean? By necessity. The dictionary definition is 1. Restricted to a particular characteristic of life. 2. Biologically essential for survival. Combining obligate with carnivore is pretty clear. Cats must eat meat. It's an absolute biological necessity. There is no such thing as a vegan or a vegetarian cat. The natural prey of cats contain around 55% protein, 45% fats, and around 1 to 2% carbohydrates on a dry matter basis. From a nutritional perspective, this means that in their natural habitat, cats consume small prey, including rodents and birds. Feline diabetes is now reaching epidemic proportions, primarily in overweight and obese cats who are essentially fed dry food products. The majority of cats in the United States are fed a high-calorie, high-carbohydrate diet loaded with grains that they have no need for, such as corn, wheat, rice, soy, millet, and quinoa. The grain-free dry versions, which are highly popular now, are also just as bad because they contain the calorie-dense, high-glycemic carbs like potatoes, chickpeas, peas, which we as diabetics know require substantial amounts of insulin. Feeding an obligate carnivore cat a high carbohydrate diet let alone a diabetic cat, is analogous to pouring gasoline on a fire and wondering why you can't put that fire out. Here is the first major problem. The carbohydrate content of commercial cat food won't be found on the packaged label. Pet food companies don't want to reveal this information because they recognize nutrition-savvy pet owners would be stunned to learn how much cheap, unnecessary filler starch is added to pet food to keep costs low. The ideal nutrition for cats is whole, fresh, unprocessed animal meats, organs, and bones with small amounts of vegetables. Unfortunately, the majority of middle-aged and senior kitties with diabetes are completely addicted to the processed pet foods, usually kibble. So why again do many commercially made cat food products, including treats, have corn, wheat, grains in them? It's the same reason why high fructose corn syrup is in many of the processed human foods. It is cheap. And in order to make dry kibble affordable and it sticks together, carbohydrates in the form of corn and grains are added to the food mix. If you remember in the episode Diabetes and Blood Sugar, and I'll put a link in the description box below for you, we talked about how excessive carbohydrates in the diets creates high circulating insulin levels, which then in turn causes the kidneys to reabsorb sodium, causing fluid retention and high blood pressure. While in cats, there is also a direct correlation between the diet and kidney health. You see, it's not just the lack of protein and the addition of carbohydrates to kibble that makes it bad for cats. It is also because it is dry. Domesticated cats are descendants of the desert-dwelling fields of Africa. Cats adapted to the dry environments by being able to highly concentrate their urine and ignore signs of mild dehydration. This becomes a huge concern when feeding cats dry kibble because they don't drink water. So then, where do cats get their water from? Protein or the muscle tissue from their kill prey is made up of predominantly water. What is the cure for cats? For one, they are put on the exact same basal insulins we humans are on. Lantus is one, and the one I'm personally using, Levemir. Yes, that's right. Cats get the exact same medications we are on. How ironic is that? Second, they are changed to a high protein, low carbohydrate diet. Get this, it's been given a name. It's called the Catkins diet. This diet promotes weight loss and makes diabetes much more manageable, sending cats into remission so that they no longer require insulin injections. So if feeding our animals foods that their genes and metabolisms are not designed for simply causes diseases, then what is best for us humans? The answer, as I've said before, is look to evolution. Refined carbohydrates from sugars, grains, breads, corn, flour, as I mentioned before, the highly inflammatory vegetable oils were never part of man's history prior to the 1900s. That is when all the modern diseases we know started to plague man. I would like to thank and credit Dr. Chris Kenobi for this chart, and I'll put another link in the description box below for you to watch his life-changing video. Heart disease was an extraordinarily rare disorder in the 1800s to the early 1930s. By 1930, coronary heart disease became the leading cause of death, virtually unknown 30 years earlier. What changed so quickly? For one, they had the tools to refine carbohydrates, flours, breads, sugars, along with the addition of man-made polyunsaturated fats, or what's known as vegetable oils, or now they're using the term plant oils to confuse you. These now became the foods for the masses. By 2010, 1/3 or 32% of the deaths are now due to coronary heart disease. Nearly 63% of our diets now comes from these processed foods, just like what we've seen in our pet foods. And if you've been following me, then you know the driver behind this mess is called hyperinsulinemia, which then results in all these chronic diseases, and inflammation to our arteries, thus heart disease. Do we as humans learn from our history? Are we the very first civilization to get heart disease and diabetes? Or has this been seen in ancient cultures? I'll set up another video for you to watch, Can Diabetics Eat Bread? And that'll answer a lot of very important questions. Are breads, cereals, grains good for modern man, let alone diabetics? Were grains also the main contributing factor for the autoimmune attack which caused my type 1 diabetes in the first place? If you're on a desktop or laptop, I want you to use your fingers to tap this upcoming box. If you're on your mobile device, tap that with your fingers. The first is the link to subscribe to this all-important channel. The second is the link to the video on breads. So, have a great and productive day, and we will see you soon with another new episode, which are generally released weekly. Bye for now.